In a world where information seems to travel at the speed of light and traffic at a snail's pace, where the agenda of those at the helm doesn't always reflect the pressures on the streets, where the rubber hits the road, where there's queue of issues needing to be interrogated in the name of speaking truth to power.
Welcome to a place at the table,
where we set the agenda,
table the issues that matter to you,
and invite you to take a seat at the table. Welcome to a place at the table. Let's talk security from a border control point of view.
Ande, you're speaking on border control. I'm speaking on respecting other people's borders. I'll be referencing the ongoing Nigeria must go protest in Ghana.
Funke, your advocacy be like get part one and part two. You could say that I am tackling the issue of claim to land. My advocacy is on the politics of renaming streets. I am saying that true legacy lives in the heart.
I agree, Elsie. However, we all gain when that legacy translates from the heart to a practical benefit. I'm talking about the women's economic empowerment policy and saying, ladies first, no be just for mouth, I beg.
Let me add that respect for the dead, no be just for mouth. Respect is earned, so I'll be speaking and asking, was Buhari really a bad boy?
Matt, it's like you are reopening Pandora's box. Well, as you can see from the lineup, we don't shrink back from tackling the issues that affect us. In fact, let's face things head on after the break. Recently, Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, raised concerns about Nigeria's porous borders and the effect on our national security and sovereignty. He called for fencing of Nigeria's borders, especially in areas affected by insurgency. This has drawn criticism from some quarters, but today I want to implore us to reflect deeply and request that urgent measures be taken to secure our borders. In today's world, technology must form the main basis for border control. However, technological and physical infrastructure are not mutually exclusive. Nigeria's defense chief called for a multi-pronged approach, and our focus should be to proffer solutions whose merits the government must examine to adopt a workable solution based on our context. There are countries which have built walls to secure their borders, but I'm sure this isn't an isolated measure. Technology, intelligence, and community participation must form a part of a necessarily multi-pronged approach to this problem. Terrorism, banditry, land grabbing, and population explosion are all linked directly with our porous borders, and the situation has gone on for far too long to try and score cheap points on the demerits of any proposal. Our focus must be on this existential threat and how we can unite to solve the challenge.
Okay, I'm going to start by saying, as much as you're saying we should we should not throw out building the wall, but the question is, can we afford the wall? Like, is Mexico going to pay for it? Let me.
Exactly. If you have
because that's what came to my mind. Is Lake Chad or Niger Republic going to pay for it? So it's very important for us to understand our particular context and not try to do a copy and paste approach for solutions. We can't afford to pay for a wall. Nigeria's border, beyond its porosity, is so diverse. Different climate requirement, different terrain. So again, we are going to spend billions to build a wall to keep people out, when people will literally just go to the border where the walls are and bribe officials, just to get it. We need to look at it more from a technology angle, beyond the physical infrastructure angle. We should invest in technological infrastructure like drones to man the aerial space, and also coordinate with the regional government on how to manage insecurity better vis-a-vis border crossing.
Well said. So for you, no wall.
Please, no wall.
It's going to cost an arm and a leg to have walls across Nigeria's borders, because we're quite large and we have quite a number of neighbors, around us. Just as Zumah has said, I mean, this is giving me Trump border vibes. So Trump has these border goals and, building walls. First term, second term, is just obsessed with these borders, these walls. And just as Zuma said, we just can't pick things from abroad, like we pick Okmoimo from wherever and say, yes, Osun State will now have their children, will now have these mini computer tablets, and then somebody is saying, let's have walls. Who's going to pay for the walls? How much do we have? They're telling us Nigeria is broke. So yes, if we're broke, where are we going to get the money to build walls? Is it the Semeboda or the Niger, or which one?
Martins, Martins, you really think that money is a problem? Let's assume that everything being equal, because they...
Why are you picking on me?
Because the two of them are talking about money, not that there's something...
It costs a lot.
So what I would usually ask would be, what's the opportunity cost? What's the opportunity cost of not building a wall or not securing our borders? And what are the threats of having porous borders? What can work and what is it that cannot work? So for me, I'm not either or against or for building walls, but what will work? So if we live in a community, we live in our region, the West African region is very communal. Not just in terms of how we live, but also our borders. So there are Nigerians. In fact, it is said that there is a particular ex-governor that if he pulls his money out of the economy of Niger will collapse. Because Niger shares border with most of these northwestern states.
Yes.
And they speak the same language. And in fact, they come into Nigeria to vote during elections and go back.
So you see, and
then this happens, and then this is one of the reasons we have problems in terms of Boko Haram and the level of insecurity that happens in Nigeria. So the question there for me has always been, what is the opportunity cost? Are we losing more by having our borders so porous? And if we are losing more, what are we losing? What is the economic benefit? What is the security benefit? Or what are the economic threats? What are the economic security threats? And then the opportunities that are there that exist. If these opportunities outweigh the danger or the threats, then we need to do something. And how much would it cost us to build walls, for example? And I don't know if the CDS was talking about building concrete walls.
Or technological walls.
You can build barbed wires, you can build whatever it is.
You can use bricks.
What are these walls like? What is the context of the walls that he was referring to? Now you can actually build spiritual walls. So we don't need to say that it must cost us money.
I think we've been building spiritual walls.
Because our governors tell us from time to time that presidents pray for Nigeria that the problem is spiritual. The Zamfara governor has done that before. The Kaduna State governor has said that before. Our security, that these Boko Haram people, they are spiritual. So we don't know if it is a spiritual wall he's referring to. So let's not jump into conclusions.
So we need
to say that this wall is going to cost us money when it can just cost us Abafada and everything is wrong.
Elsie, he was talking about the opportunity cost and what are we losing. We're losing lives. We're losing. Farmers are losing their means of livelihood, and we keep hearing that these people come across the border. So what do you say?
So I like that you just mentioned that we're losing lives. And I always say it on this table that as a Nigerian, I don't think that there is value on a Nigerian life, which is why you hear hundreds are dead and it's business as usual. It's like, we just ate rice and we're moving forward, right? So first, even to get the opportunity cost Mart talked about, we can't get it because we don't have values for things that should be valuable, right? But from your advocacy, I also see that it's supposed to be, again, especially to affected areas. Nobody's saying fence the whole of Nigeria if it's literal war now. Even if it's spiritual war, it can start from somewhere, right? It can be, if this opportunity cost is done and we see that this is something that needs to be done, I don't think that Nigeria cannot afford it. It could be iterated, it could be incremental, it could say, this is the most porous border that we have right now, we need to solve it. That's if they want to build the wall, right? And go on with that. However, I think the part where you talked about it not being isolated measure, and technology is the most important part for me, because he talked about people coming in to vote. We have data issues. Even Nigerians in Nigeria don't even know how many Nigerians they have. All we deal with, all we move with is estimates based on whatever calculation that we see on an international website, and we're saying today we are 200 and something. So we haven't even been able to do a proper census. You know, so we don't know ourselves. If you ask anybody in charge now to say how many Nigerians were giving birth to today in Nigeria, they don't know. So if you're going to talk about walls and porous borders, you have to be able to recognize the people in your country and know where they are, how they are multiplying, and how they're becoming Nigerians. But until we can do all that, and then there is proper data, I still always go back to the data that we have for Nigerians in Nigeria. We have fragmented data. Even the ones that you say is the best data, I can tell you for free, it's not clean. It's not something that you can hold on to. So technology is a big deal for me, and a lot needs to be done. And it's same as Nigeria problem. Everything is multifaceted, right? So, yeah.
Okay, I would like by saying, you're saying we can afford to build a wall. I would say we can afford to, we were unable to afford the census a few years back. The cost of the US-Mexico wall for 1,000 kilometers was estimated at $12 billion.
The question is, what kind of wall?
It's a mixture of fence and wires. It's
Which
not
is
even.
why, so I'm not saying it has to happen.
I'm just saying, like, so if Nigeria has $12 billion now, would you think our Nigerian landmass is significantly higher than 1,000 kilometers?
So you see,
again,
it's a bit misleading when people compare projects directly like that. Why? Because the cost of labor
is very different.
There's minimum wage. There are so many factors that go into how much projects are there. There's no doubt there's going to be an expensive project.
Billions of dollars.
Yeah, there's no doubt it will be expensive. But beyond building walls, I think what everybody on the table is saying, we need to also build political will to unite to solve a common problem, rather than dividing to score cheap political points. What is the way forward? It isn't rocket science.
Right, Ande, it's indeed not rocket science. So should we go or should we stay? Or perhaps the way forward can be found in respectful, peaceful coexistence of people around the borders with the people on the other side. Last week, some Ghanaians protested some Nigerians' continued oppression and takeover of commerce and community in their country. Let's backtrack to contextualize the genesis of the must-go refrain from both countries. In 1969, Ghanaian Prime Minister Kofi Busia created an immigration policy titled the Alien Compliance Order. With that, all undocumented immigrants had just 14 days to either get a residence permit or leave the country. Ghana cited crime rates and wanting to recapture Ghanaian economic space from foreigners. 70% of the migrants were Nigerians. In 1983, during the Shagari administration, the Nigerian government issued an executive order in what many see as a retaliation, asking foreigners to leave Nigeria. The targets were Ghanaians for their sheer number and overwhelming functional value at that time. Their exit birthed the iconic Ghana Must Go bags. 4 decades later, Ghanaian citizens, not the government, are protesting, asking Nigerians to leave their country. Why? They're citing crime rates, prostitution, ritualism, kidnapping, violent attacks, economic reasons, and territorial incursion by the Igbo. I've seen videos of Ghanaians pulling down structures of Nigerians in anger. Sahara Reporter reports that the Ezendigbo Ghana matter involving Chukwudi Hinetu triggered protests and intense public debates around issues of sovereignty, cultural identity, and the limits of foreign community leadership in the country. I pick up from where I left off last week on indigenization. The Tribune reports a protester saying you cannot be in another man's country and be doing anyhow. A migrant should not claim indigenship rights. That's what I think. You have an enabling environment to thrive already. So enjoy it in peace instead of aspiring to have the same ancestral rights as the owners of the land. So why set up a parallel cultural government in someone else's country? It's an affront. I thought royalty was hereditary. How is it that anyone can wake up to become an Eze outside Southeast Nigeria once he has money? Next thing is creating a throne and establishing court. And this is what I like. I like that the Southeast traditional rulers have substituted that title of Eze Ndigbo with Oye Ndu Ndigbo. Ghana not be Nigeria.
I would like to start by asking, what does Onye Ndu Ndigbo mean?
I think it means leader. So it doesn't mean that you're a traditional ruler. It means that you're leading the community of Igbo people in a place. So that's exception that people take to, no, you can't be a king in our land, will now not be there.
That makes sense, and it's very, very valid. I would like to say in 1969, Ghana did Ghana Renew. In 1983, Nigeria did its first Nigeria Renew. But then again, I feel like it's a stretch thinking Nigeria was retaliating 14 years after Ghanaians' request for foreigners to leave if they're unable to get their people sorted in 14 days. Economic and social migration has been a thing for years all over the world. People are going to move for different reasons.
That's right.
But it can only work when there is respect for the host community's values and culture. You cannot go to somebody's ancestral land and start trying to impose things that are alien to them. You cannot go to somebody's ancestral land and start trying to form king. Everybody should go and do that in their, respective villages, irrespective of where it is you come. It's like going to the UK and say you want to be the king of Nigerians in the UK.
We need to focus on certain things. One, we have an ECOWAS. And why did we form ECOWAS? To allow ease of trade and movement within West Africa. We are talking about strengthening the African Union. So we cannot be saying one thing on one hand at policy level, then not educating people enough. If Nigerians are legally in Ghana paying taxes, there is no reason why anybody should come and say
Nigeria must go.
They must go and try to now generalize with those breaking the laws. They should be able to enforce their laws, because any time history has shown us that generalizing usually doesn't end well. And I think there's a smart move that is being played. Why is this becoming an Igbo problem? I don't think the issue of the Eze Igbo is what led to that whole outcry. It's just probably one of those things you throw in to say people are not respecting your community. Because if they call themselves that, there are laws even in Nigeria. If you decide to call yourself anything, if you are not recognized by government, you are not. So it's just amongst your people.
Yeah, but that's Nigeria.
But let us not be hoodwinked, okay, into now justify their criminality based on some petty. It's criminal to attack Nigerians. As long as they are there legally and paying taxes and not breaking any law. All right. So let's be very clear.
But they're telling you that they're breaking their laws.
No. That is the thing.
Then
if
they
break their laws, catch those that have broken the law and prosecute them.
That's why I said it's not the government. It's the people.
It's one and the same thing. So the government should put their people in check. If you harass a Nigerian, that's against the law in Ghana.
There's a big gap about settlers' rights as well. So I have the right to move globally and legally to wherever I want to move to. And I have rights to live wherever I'm permitted to live.
Yes.
And the question, therefore, shouldn't be that this person has come and they are taking over our
economic activities.
Because most of the conversation that you hear about indigenous people's rights is about culture, land, language, and what have you. And if a minority or if settlers decide that we are all migrants in the real sense, nobody was born and that, I am this is the land I was born into. Most of us and most people move from one place to the other. If you trace the ancestry of everybody, you will know that people moved from one particular place to the other. And again, why I say I'm playing a devil's advocate is that there are too many instruments protecting indigenous people's rights. If you look at the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, the ILO has an instrument, international instrument protecting the rights of indigenous peoples. You have the World Bank has a regulation, a regulation that talks about indigenous peoples and all that, but nobody is talking about the hostility that settlers face. There has to be some form of protection for these people, because they keep, now the question about indigenous peoples is that you come, you bring in your culture, you bring in your experience, and you exploit our lands. And most of the time, the question about indigenous people's rights is not just about foreigners who come to settle. It's usually about resources that the government exploits, not people from Ghana, Nigeria, going into Ghana to exploit their natural resources. It is the global companies. Like I said, settlers need to feel a sense of belonging in an environment or in a place where they settle. If the Indigbos in Ghana, for example, get to Ghana and they want to speak in the language that they also understand, they should have a leader who represents them, who can do that. If they decide to call their leader their king, it's their prerogative. Their king, they are not telling you that we are taking away your own kingdom and we are forming our own. It is just like how we have, in my village, we have a king in Lagos State, for example. We have somebody, Obol is a king, that's what they call him. He represents the Lagosian, the people of my community in Lagos State.
I've been to Ghana, right? And when it comes to prostitution or whatever it's called, I've gone to certain areas, I'll try not to mention names, and I feel like, to a large extent, if I see a Nigerian, I know a Nigerian. The people that were lined up and doing the prostitution, they were not Nigerian, right? They were Ghanaians. Okay. Now, my point is, Igbo people, forget about Ghana, for everywhere, even in Lagos State, like he has rightly said, we are a very communal-driven people, right? Unfortunately, calling myself out, I have not been participating in all those community engagements, but I know, even in the UK, in Canada, everywhere they go, there's a community, and they use that to be able to say, oh, this our brother has come in, how do we help them? Even in terms of burial and childbirth and all, they all come together to be able to say, this is how they are going to support each other, or how they settle and uphold that one is the Igbo language speaking, and also just brotherhood and all. That is Igbo people for you. And I'm glad that Mart has already said this happens in other communities as well, right? This is not about saying Eze Ndi Igbo Ghana is now Eze of Ghana. That is not the point. I also like that maybe in trying to be civil, the people here have said, let's change it to leadership. Maybe that brings some form of succor to people. But no, the problem is not the Igbo people. And let's not make this look like, oh, this is just a Ghana and Nigerian thing. This is almost what every Nigerian faces in most of the African countries, because it's always a case of they're facing it in South Africa. This same thing sometimes come up in Kenya. It's a case of Nigerians are here, they have the education, they probably are getting the jobs that they think that they have. We've seen some interviews where you ask them, so what is the problem? Say they're taking my job. Oh, did you go to school? No. Do you have the requirement to be able to do this job? No. So how exactly are they taking your job? Because those jobs, they are being employed because they are qualified to do the job. So there is a lot more going on. I feel like whatever is happening now on the surface has a lot underneath that everybody then grabs in on straws to say, oh, this is what this one did, this is what they did. We need to, as Africans, begin to see ourselves as brothers first. Right? Nigerians will always be Nigerians. We are fast, we are loud. Forward, we are loud. But I would say, as a Nigerian, if you go to Ghana, please, as long as you are registered and you are there legally, then that makes sense, right? If you're not there legally, please leave their country. It's as simple as that. Respect people to do what the law says. But having a communal gathering and doing things because this is how you survive, it doesn't infringe on anybody's rights. And I don't think that we should be vilified because we are holding up our community. That should not be what should happen.
We speak of Pan-Africanism. However, for there to be true unity, there must first be respectful coexistence, not only within a country, but intra-country as well.
Respectful coexistence begins when we put away insincere politics and build bonds on foundations of true legacy, the kind that lives in the heart. Today, I'm here to say legacy is not about street names or monuments. It lives in the hearts of the people. True legacy is built on the actions, values, and influence one leaves behind. It cannot be forced upon the public by renaming streets or institutions. Yet in Nigeria, we repeatedly see the people in government trying to create a legacy through the simple act of renaming, but it misses the true meaning of what it means to be remembered. One of such examples is the ongoing attempt to rename the University of Maiduguri to Muhammadu Buhari University. Also recall the failed attempt by the Goodluck Jonathan administration to rename UNILAG to Moshood Abiola University in 2012. While some may view it as tribute, many see it as an attempt to politicize education, sidelining the university's established history. It can serve as a symbolic gesture of respect, but also be perceived as an imposition that disregards local sentiments and historical significance. Now, similarly, renaming of streets in certain areas, like the Bitayo Street in Magodo Phase 2 in Lagos, which is now Obasa Mudashiru Street, and Charlie Boy Street or Charlie Boy Bus Stop, which is now called Olamide Bado Bus Stop, underscores a broader debate about the balance between honoring national figures and preserving regional and local identities. Renaming streets every few decades is a sign that the government isn't building anything new. Rather than changing names, we should focus on teaching the younger generations about these figures and their real contributions to history, if any. Naming a street after someone loses its meaning over time. How many people truly think of Obafemi Awolowo when they drive on Awolowo Road in Ikoyi? How long will this false legacy you try to create for yourself last? Until the next power-hungry, legacy-grabbing group of people takes over? Now think about it. True legacy is defined by love and respect you inspire in others, the lives you touch, and the change you instigate. Also note that without embedding these figures through legacies in our education, renaming places becomes nothing more than a lazy, sycophantic attempt to appease your ego and maybe some group of people.
Yeah, Elsie, I agree with you that there's just too much sycophancy going on. And maybe your example of Awolowo Road was not a good one, because those are actually the kind of people that
who deserve
to name these things
no,
after.
My question is, do you remember them when you're driving past?
We do, some of us do. And the good thing is that they were not roads that were existing. Then they now changed them to Awolowo Road. Mm-hmm. They built a road and named it Awolowo. If you want to name a university after anybody, why not build one? You talked about historical significance of institutions. It's very important. I know in the UK for sure there are buildings you can't even renovate. The class buildings, class A, B, C. There are some, even if it's your own, they'll tell you this is a class A building. You can't even, just to preserve the nature of that. You can imagine the history of University of Lagos or being made, and you now want to change it to somebody. Build a new university and then name it after someone who is gone, which is fine that in this case, it's even after somebody who is gone. The main problem is people naming things after themselves while they're even still in office. I really don't see, there should be some modesty, some decorum, you know. People should not be seen to be chasing honor. You know, philosophers will tell that honor is more honorable when it's being given to you, not you being seen that you are always trying to grab honor.
Okay, I will start by saying I think of Awolowo whenever I pass by Awolowo. And I'll think of Zumba Yahaya, which is a road I pass more often whenever I'm passing by. My favorite part of the advocacy is the fact that legacy is built by actions, values, and influence one leaves behind, and it cannot be forced upon the public. I absolutely agree with that. But then again, legacy is subjective. Like what I think is important may not be what the presidents think is important. we are different people. At the end of the day, responsibility of such actions rests on the leadership. Beyond that, I also like the fact that renaming things indicates that new things are not being built. I agree with you. Like Ande said, if you want to rename something, build. You know, if you want to institutionalize a legacy, it's easier to create it from scratch and let it align with the person's identity and values, rather than just, you know, doing renaming whenever it is. Anybody come on and, you know, decide they don't like the current name or they want to impress somebody else.
I would take your line that says an imposition that disregards local sentiments and historical significance. That's what I wrote down from there. Ande and Zumah already spoke about the Obafemi Awolowo part. I was going to ask, are you sure that people don't think about them? But we already have someone here who's saying that. But then again, let me just quickly say that using Obafemi Awolowo, just as Ande said, is just, it doesn't. Obafemi Awolowo was a premier. He was an iconic person in the Western region. He was a hero. The industrial hubs.
Before you go on, sorry. So the question I asked, if you look at the advocacy again, the point is that if you want to honor somebody you're mentioning now, Obafemi Awolowo, right, it needs to go back into our history books so that people understand what these people have done. And
they
not just
do. You're just assuming they
you
don't.
are sure they do. If you go and ask the Judge Zena, they do.
You know, but let's leave that aside. What I really want to talk about, and it's good that you've mentioned Uzumba Mbadiwe, it's the same Lagos City. There's Amadu Bello Way. You know, so when something happens, we should not just forget the precedents that we have before. We should just look at that singular event and draw from everywhere to say, okay, this is right or this is not right. I hope I'm making sense.
This
is one thing I like.
The wrong way.
Yes, this is one thing I like. True legacy is defined by love and respect you inspire in others, the lives you touch, and the change you instigate. Awolowo stands for all of this, all right? And in the matter of naming streets, this is the thing about Nigeria. This is what we should work on. We're talking about settlers, right? The fact that I should be in Umaya, I lived in Umaya for a long time, that I'm in Umaya and I've done something in Umaya to inspire some people, and they name a street after me. Not because I'm from this part of Nigeria or I'm from that part of Nigeria. Just last week, there was this street naming matter between Ebonyi and Anambra as well. So you see, it's not just between tribes. And just to contextualize this, there's nowhere we've seen what Charlie Boy did in that place. He did not get that bus stop. Officially, there is nothing to show that there was once a Charlie Boy bus stop that was changed. If anybody names a street after him, my father has a street named after him. Why? Because we've been there for a long time and we did the road there. So he has a street named after. If you don't have all of that, then let's not just get into unnecessary tension to say, no, you must have. The people who administer the place say they're naming streets. And it's good that you said there are other Yoruba names too that are being changed. So let's not just hit up the politics.
I don't think it was coming from a tribal perspective. On this Charlie Boy matter.
No, not her.
Okay, yeah, okay. But like on this Charlie Boy matter,
yes,
right?
Yes.
There is a reason why people start calling there's Sele Junction because there's a big Sele church there. Why are you changing it? Sometimes names grow with the community. Charlie Boy used to live there. Charlie Boy, why change it? That's my view, though.
So I think that what Elsie is essentially saying in her advocacy is that government should stop being lazy. What good luck could have just done would have either, MK was known for being a footballer, someone who supported football, and do something, a monument after him and all that. The whole idea of, and what annoys me the most is not even about honoring people and getting, it's about the fact that you are in office, you build something, or you will rename something after yourself, don't we have shame? Imagine we are talking about Chief Obafemi Awolowo. We are talking about Ozumba Mbadiwe. This man who was in charge of the Southeast region back in the day, Michael Okpara.
Yes.
Those were people who sat down and did something for the people. Do something that people would remember and honor you for when you are gone. Don't force honor on us. We don't honor you when you don't do anything right.
Anyway, we're a nation in desperate need of a true unifying identity. Renaming streets to exalt our egos won't get us to the promised land.
Interesting, Elsie. Actions speak louder than words, names and titles. Let's put the Women Economic Empowerment Policy into action and truly bridge the gender gap. In May 2023, the federal government of Nigeria launched the National Women's Economic Empowerment Policy, a blueprint designed to propel gender equality and unleash the economic potential of Nigerian women. Yet, 2 years on, the progress of its domestication at the state level remains dishearteningly slow. Lagos and Kwara states have adopted this transformative framework, while Kano and Kaduna have initiated the process. More than 30 states have yet to take decisive action. The WE policy is not just a document, it is a comprehensive framework designed to address and dismantle gender disparities with the following core objectives. 1, raise women's participation in the labor force to 65%, as 7 out of 10 Nigerians living in poverty are women. Having more women in the workforce strengthens the family system, as women are known to reinvest 90% of their income into their families. 2, increase women's financial inclusion to 75%, as only 4 out of 10 Nigerian women have access to financial services. 3, increase women's participation in agriculture to 30%, as 7 out of 10 agricultural workers are women, yet women own less than 14% of farming land. 4, it targets 75% secondary school enrollment for girls, as 6 out of 10 Nigerian women suffer from intellectual poverty, and only 4 out of 10 girls of school age are enrolled in secondary schools. 5, to advance women in leadership and emerging industries, aiming for women to hold 25% of board seats and 30% of senior management positions in companies listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Nigeria ranks 125th on the Global Gender Gap Index, and yet there is a delay in domesticating the WE policy in most states. To the governors of the states, we issue a fervent appeal. Seize this moment and put it in motion. And to the first ladies, make it your personal advocacy. A nation of empowered women sets the tone for the future of your daughters. It set the tone for the future of the country. Let's make the change we desire.
I was looking through Instagram the other day and I saw this was happening in, I think somewhere in the US, where a pregnant woman was denied care in a state because she's not married. So she had to travel out of the state, right? And that then made me go into what happens in, even in saner climes where we see things are better, or that we need to look at what they do in terms of democracy and human rights and all. I realized that Africans don't exactly have it worse. In Africa, we have produced the first woman president, right? So when we're telling these stories, it is also important to recognize the efforts that are being made to move things forward.
And the progress.
In Africa and in Nigeria, right? But all this that has been listed is very spot on. We need more representation. I think the area or the place right now in this country that worries me the most is the National Assembly. And what is happening there, right? Not going into details, but at least we know what the ratio is. And even with that ratio, we know how powerful their voice can be or cannot be. So, like I said, everything you said is spot on. I hope that those who are in power are listening and they can begin to apply this flaws and suggestions, like you call them, and see how we move forward and become better from there.
Thank you, Elsie. Ande?
Yeah, thanks, Zuma. I think this is very interesting. And I know we've produced female presidents, vice presidents, and all that, but
Go ahead.
not in Nigeria. I mean, she mentioned that in Africa, but I don't want us to get carried away by those, right? So there are pockets of women. Some women can stand out, maybe based on some advantages they had, not because a critical mass of women have been empowered and they've now decided that, okay, a woman needs to have this role. And I think that is why this policy is in place. It goes beyond...
Level the playing ground.
Yeah, it goes beyond the flashes of brilliance and opportunity to a systemic empowerment of women. So what I want to say really about this is everything you've mentioned, those are my views. Empowering people, empowering women, creating jobs, giving people a decent opportunity at life. I mean, so part of what we need to be doing as a nation is strategic planning. When you have a policy in place, okay, how many women do you want to give this by this time? You know, beyond the strategic, after the strategic plan, we need to also break down into the operational plan. And who is going to implement this, when, how, so that we hold people accountable. But you see, we don't do a lot of planning. And it said, when you fail to plan, plan to fail. So we must see first strategic documents like this broken down into operational implementable documents, and then hold somebody accountable for it, to say, you said you will do this in 1 year. What was done? What were the challenges, and how can we do better? But there will be a lot of ribbon cutting. We've passed this bill, we've done this policy, they will clap, everybody goes back to business as usual.
Thank you. Mart?
I honestly don't have anything to say other than to follow it the same way you charged the governors and the first ladies to ensure that this policy takes direct effect in their states. And for me, it should move from a policy level to a legislation. No, not just implementation, but a legislation. And because at that point, then it can bite, as opposed to leaving it at the discretion of the policymaker to choose how and how not. So implement it and also ensure that it becomes a legal and binding document that every other government or governor that comes into power can use, as opposed to setting it aside. So well done.
Thank you, Mart. Funke?
Well, I like this advocacy. I like the storytelling. It's good to know that this was initiated by the federal government 2 years back. Lagos and Kwara, sorry, I've already domesticated it. Kaduna and Kano are working on it. The question is, what are the other states doing? Seeing how lofty, how relevant this policy is. Two stats jump out at me. The first is the increase women's participation in agriculture to 30%. I mean, if you have 7 out of 10 agricultural workers being women, and at the end of the day, women own less than 14% of the land, you see that there's some lopsidedness there that should be corrected, especially that women are the ones planting ugu and shoko and everything all over the place. The second one is enrollment. The fact that you said 75% secondary school enrollment for girls. They're targeting 75% increase. 6 out of 10 Nigerian women suffer from intellectual poverty. That to me is a crisis. And then when you go on to your stats that says 4 out of 10 school-age girls are enrolled in secondary schools, that is abysmal, which is why I think one of the factors is that their menstrual health also is not factored in. That's why we're saying give them pad banks so that they remain in school. The few of them who are in school, let them remain in school, not that they will drop off because of menstruation, of their period. So this is spot on. I don't know what else we can do to support this sort of policy to make the other states to adopt it. Yeah.
I think we just have to keep talking about it and keep driving the governors, appealing to the governors and the First Lady to ensure that, you know, it gets domesticated nationwide. I will say it again. A nation of empowered women sets the tone for the future of your daughters, sets the tone for the future of the country. It is all in our best interests.
Spot on.
Zumah, if we thought and acted in all our best interests, the results will speak for themselves. I sound a warning note, especially to our leaders. The death of former President Muhammadu Buhari brought mixed emotions and long-buried frustrations for many young Nigerians who lived their formative years under his rule. They responded with complex emotions. To this generation, Buhari's presidency symbolized economic hardship, disappointment, and survival. It was under his watch that the word "sakpa," describing extreme financial struggle, became mainstream. Prices skyrocketed, the naira collapsed, and jobs vanished. Even graduates and skilled workers couldn't stay afloat. Sakpa no longer meant being broke, it meant being stuck in a system that offered no lifeline. Worse still, the hopelessness triggered the Jakpa movement, a mass emigration of young professionals, students, creatives, fleeing in insecurity, bad governance, and despair. Buhari didn't just fail to stop the brain drain, his policies pushed it. It was also during Buhari's administration that Nigerians popularized the ominous phrase, "May Nigeria not happen to you." It captured how every life could turn tragic, how police brutality, failed healthcare, collapsed infrastructure, or insecurity could ruin lives, even if you played by the rules. Young people called Nigeria a zoo due to disillusionment with dysfunction, impunity, and hopelessness. The news of his passing made social media light up, not out of cruelty, but with the voices of a generation that endured his era. Behind trending hashtags and memes were real stories of dreams delayed, futures stolen, and trauma unhealed. Despite the grandeur of state's burial and official tributes from political elites and allies, Buhari's funeral lacked true honor in the eyes of many Nigerians, especially the youth who bore the brunt of his administration's failure. While dignitaries gathered in Daura under a full military ceremony, there was no genuine public mourning, only muted indifference, bitter jokes, and online sarcasm. The funeral may have had protocol, but it lacked the one thing that gives death meaning: the respect of the people. Let Buhari's legacy be a warning. Power is temporary, but memory is eternal. Therefore, let's lead with empathy, justice, and courage. Because if you fail the youths, they will not mourn you, they will narrate you.
Why did people vote Buhari into power? He was not a debutant. He was a president before. He was a head of state. Is it that they remembered the great works he did and decided to vote him? Was it opposition frenzy? Was it threats by opposition to run a parallel government? Was it threats of bloodletting? They were Nigerians that voted him, because that was one of the elections that had minimal interference by the commander-in-chief as at that time. Now when Nigerians, if we had all the memories, as you say, perhaps, I don't know, I'm only asking.
It is quite unfortunate that Buhari came in at the peak of social media usage in Nigeria, and he rode in on the horse of being a security expert. But it is that insecurity that constitutes a huge part of what marred his administration. He oversaw 2 economic depression, recession within 5 years. You know, Naira lost 70% of its value during his administration. But in all of this, as much as I did an advocacy earlier, I would think about 2 or 3 weeks ago, on Buhari, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
As much as his tenure had its peculiar issues that kind of like took everybody back donkey years behind, I disagree that his funeral lacked the respect of the people. Because the question is, which people? Did you see how the people of Daura were in money? The people who were upset are the people on the internet. The states, they declared 1 week mourning in the north. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's always important for us to have perspectives. The way, let me just end that, may his soul rest in peace.
I will first say, may his soul rest in peace. Having said that, as a president, as a leader, you can't get it right all the time. I am particularly traumatized by the policy, the Naira change policy. And I keep saying that when I heard the passing of President Buhari, the first thing I went, oh my gosh, you know, like, oh wow. And then it triggered that trauma. And I was really traumatized at that time. And nobody can minimize that trauma. Every Nigerian will be affected or influenced in one way or the other by the presidency of anybody. So if you say, was Buhari a bad boy? Those living with disability will always remember him as the man who okays the Disability Commission, you know. They will never forget him for that. So there's always the good, the bad, and the ugly to everything. So we just look at the fact that, well, is it that we're not infallible or we're infallible? Which one now?
Yeah, not infallible.
Infallible, you know. We're human and we have flaws. I was truly, truly traumatized by that. And it took me time within that 1 week of mourning that you said for me to deal with it. So you have Nigerian youths who felt that they were betrayed by the president at that time. Look at the NSAS, look at quite a number of things that President Buhari didn't quite get right. I think he yielded at some point to some cabal, these forces, and they marred his presidency in that wise. But he did some good things.
Speaking from what everyone has said, really, the first one is how he came into power. He came into power because politics was politics, and PR was done.
Yes.
There is an, what's it called now, a documentary on Netflix on a certain PR firm that has now been sanctioned, that what their job is to ensure that whether you are the worst of the worst or you are the corrupt
image
of the
laundry.
They make you look good.
Get into power. And Nigeria was listed there. And sorry?
Poor education.
Poor education. So yes, I agree. Let's take responsibility. We voted him. I mean, I did not vote, but we voted him, right? And it is based on what people took in. The politics, the party, they understood the game. And they played the game. And people refuse to go back to history to really know who Buhari is or how his leadership works. And they voted him in. So that's how he came to power. It's not that, oh, he's the best
war
thing
against
after
indiscipline.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So that is, just to answer that question, how did he come to power? That is how he came to power. Secondly, like you said, he was mourned in Daura, his people. See, even if, again, let's be clear, I'm not saying he's a thief, but when a thief is dead, his immediate family will still mourn.
Yeah.
When you get to a certain pinnacle of your life, you're no longer just for your family. He's a nationwide figure, right? I don't want to use the word global, but he is a nationwide figure.
He's a global figure, yeah.
That mourning cannot be expected to be limited to Daura or the North. And if you say, oh, people were mourning, my darling, of course, I'm on radio. We get the pulse of the people. I talk to people every day. People on social media are still the people of social media. They are not two different peoples, right? So what I would say is, like you said, nobody is that big English, infallible, right? Yes. You're human. There are policies that you would put in that would be awesome to some people, and for some people, you don't take on well. However, I think that this generation, have got a lot that happened in his administration that is very traumatic, like she has said.
People who
and
became
we
adults
cannot
recently.
forget them quickly, which was what I was talking about in terms of, yes, the older generation can remember what Obafemi Awolowo has done, but how are we sustaining that history in the current generation? Are they still being taught those things in the school? So it still takes me back to him as a person. Like I said, may his soul rest in peace. He has run his race. We are here discussing it, right? But it should serve as a lesson, like Mart has said, for everyone. Like, we need to think about what the real impact is. You are there, the position is there, you're making money, you're getting the respect. In fact, you are dragging legacy now and apportioning it to yourself. But beyond all this, how are you impacting people's life? I don't even want to get to NSAS and all that, but for me, he lived his life. May he rest in peace.
This is not a conversation about Buhari in the real sense of it.
Yeah.
It is a conversation about those who aspire and who are in politics and who are in public places. It is a conversation about what would people say when you are gone. How would people immortalize you? That is where true legacy and immortalization resides, in the hearts of people. And this generation does not forget. Now I live in Abuja, and Wike has helped. I don't like him, let's be clear. But Wike has helped minimize the fuel consumption of my car. If I'm going to Zone 1, I don't need to go round and round and round. He has connected bridges in Abuja.
So now you're a wicked stand.
I'm still not.
He says he doesn't like him.
You don't like him, but you are still doing so well as a leader.
I'm acknowledging the fact that I don't like his politics. Doesn't mean I should not be honest. We reap what we sow. Unfortunately, where leadership is concerned, many reap what a few sow, often exponentially. Let's peak out to stop the rot before it becomes our legacy. Join us next week, same time, same channel. Till then, it's goodbye from us.
Bye-bye.